Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk HR UK. I'm Simon Geere from Alexander Lloyd, and this is yet another episode with another HR and talent acquisition leader discussing important matters that are happening in the industry today. Today, we are joined by Luke Smith from Toyota. Morning, Luke.
Hey, Simon, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, and thank you for giving up your time. We really appreciate it. Luke, I've known some time. He's been working at Toyota GB for over 7 years now in HR and talent acquisition. Luke has a very interesting background. He's worked in HR for some time. He upcycles furniture. I've recently learned he's worked in hospitality. He's worked with horses. He's done it all, and I think that's what talent acquisition is all about. Is that broad skill set. I'm sure everything from all those backgrounds has led you to this place. But we were talking recently, weren't we, Luke, about the challenging year that it's been for talent acquisition and leaders in that space, and how important, even, probably especially in a challenging market, that it's important to work on candidate experience. So we've titled this episode Perfecting Candidate Experience in the Modern Talent Acquisition Process. And I just wanted to talk with Luke because Toyota GB seems to be doing some really amazing work in this space. And has a great reputation for attracting and keeping in touch with candidates. And we've been party to that. We've obviously worked with you on a placement in HR within the last within living memory anyway. So kicking off, starting with that, Toyota has been recognised for creating a great candidate experience. Can you kind of walk us through some of the key strategies you've implemented that you think have enhanced the recruitment process for experienced hires and early careers?
Thanks, Simon. I mean, like you said, well, first of all, actually, I think it was you that placed me at Toyota. So our relationship does go back that far.
I'd forgotten that.
So in terms of candidate experience, I mean, the customer is really important to Toyota as a whole. And we think about when we're implementing something new or making any changes, we always think about how the customer would feel and how it would benefit the customer as well. So recruitment isn't different in terms of, there's a customer to our recruitment, which is obviously the candidate. We want them to have a great experience. Also, kind of bearing in mind whatever part of their kind of career journey they are at, they might be already or might become, or friends and family might become advocates of the Toyota brand and the mobility solutions that Toyota is able to offer. So thinking about giving a candidate a great experience is not just about the recruitment part, but also giving them an insight into what it's like at Toyota and the brand and the whole kind of ethos. So we wouldn't want somebody to have a bad experience and then think that, they wouldn't want to purchase a mobility solution from Toyota because of their recruitment experience. So
good point.
Yeah, and it's all kind of, it's all aligned in that it's all coming from from the same place. Ultimately, we want to do good things for good people and give a good candidate experience. So I think the question was around something that we've implemented recently. So we have done, we kind of got some feedback that generally, actually, that, interviews are quite a nerve-wracking experience. So one of the things that we implemented recently is we've got a gym and a wellbeing ambassador on site at our Eco HQ, and our wellbeing ambassador supports us with being able to facilitate a bit of a kind of pre-interview mini meditation session before the candidate comes in for the interview. Excellent. So that's something that there's a few people that have gone kind of through the process and have, given us great feedback in that actually, it did support them to be their best in that interview process. But a lot of the time, sometimes it's just the candidates knowing that that's the kind of thing that we authentically kind of want to do, but then kind of puts them at ease. Ultimately, definitely. When you're interviewing someone, you've only got a short period of time to talk to them about the role and ask their experience. And by just getting the nerves out of the way a little bit beforehand, you've almost then got more time to spend with a candidate, finding out a bit more about them and the way that they work and the things that they've done previously. And then they've got a chance to ask you as well in terms of what the company's like and what the role is like. So I guess that's the first kind of innovation that we've put in. And we've seen some really kind of good results for that. There are simple things like just making the application process as simple as possible. It's not an arduous thing. We're not asking for loads of cover letters and extensive questions. we want it to be a nice, quick, simplified kind of experience. And I know previously, well, post Toyota, when I was applying for jobs with your support, some of the application processes are really arduous. There's lots of stuff that you need to do, lots of information that you need to check and input. So, one of the things that we really wanted to do was to make that kind of process really simple. I guess the mantra behind the whole recruitment process is just that it's kind of fair and robust, but also has the flexibility to add personalization into that as well. So especially with our kind of experienced hire recruitment, we want to be able to treat everybody the same, treat everybody fairly, get them through the process with the least amount of kind of effort.
Yeah.
But also we want them to have a good personalized experience with it as well. So there are certain touch points, we make an effort to make them personalized and make them more human in terms of, booking in for an interview is kind of one example. And those conversations that we have with the candidates to book them in for an interview, it isn't just, are you free to come in on this day? We want to understand a bit about them and kind of why they might not be able to come in at that time. And is there a better time that you can be flexible to be able to support them to come in? And kind of within that conversation, we understand that, maybe they've got kids they want to drop off at school, or they've got a dog, or they're just about to go to a gig or something like that, which is always great to be able to kind of introduce that further down the line when we're speaking to them. So we can refer back to, you couldn't interview on that day because you had an assembly that you wanted to watch with your kid. How did that go? Or, you couldn't do that evening because you had a gig that you were going to go to. How was it? Did you have a good time? What's your next one? So I think the personalization is something that we, as a team, all kind of, we know that it's important, but it is authentic and natural to us. We want to understand what people are like, and also want to put them at ease so that they can be their best when we see them for the face-to-face interviews.
That's great. It's a really great demonstration of genuine empathy, because I think perhaps TA people, specialists, let's say, have moved a lot further towards that. But I think as HR, as a population, we're not great enough at putting ourselves in the shoes of the person on the other side of the conversation, particularly in an interview. I think the meditation piece is awesome. I mean, like you say, whether you take it up or not, to have had that experience with an organization that you may or may not end up working for, but as you say, down the line you may become a customer, and again, you've highlighted how important it is to remember that all potential future employees, so basically everyone that doesn't already work there, is a potential customer in some way, shape or form. It's just a great approach, and it's not such a huge leap, is it? I bet you this hasn't cost your organization tons of money to do this kind of thing.
No, not at all. I mean, our wellbeing ambassador is with us already. He organises other kind of wellbeing activities, supports with the gym and nutrition plans for people and that kind of stuff. So this kind of thing is already in his wheelhouse. He's not having to reinvent something or other. But he also then can tailor, because of his experience, he can kind of tailor that to the person. So it might be that the person wants to sit somewhere quietly and just have a bit of a chill before the interview. It might be that somebody wants to talk something through before the interview, to talk about their nerves or what they're apprehensive about. I mean, we kind of let them know in advance that the person they're going to be speaking to, our wellbeing ambassador, doesn't have any reflection on the decision that is made as part of the interview process, so they can share openly and authentically what's worrying them or how they're going to approach it to kind of be their best, and without kind of fear of judgment, but also just so that session is pitched at the right level. Then the wellbeing ambassador isn't there to kind of make a judgment or give them the answers to the questions that they might get. It genuinely is just to try and support them to relax and to just so that they're able to settle into the process a bit quicker.
Great, thank you. So how does it, I mean, we touched on experienced hires there. I mean, how does the approach to candidate experience differ, do you think, for experienced professionals versus early careers, which is such a growing area for all TA functions and HR functions now? Are there any particular sort of specific measures you found most effective for each group?
So for me, it is, well, obviously experienced hires and emerging talent. But if we look at them slightly differently, and the experienced hires, we're going to have less of them. So it's more, we can take a more of a headhunter approach, which again means that we can be more personalized in that. With the emerging talent, it is more kind of bulk recruitment, in that we have a lot of applications that we need to go through, and then we run assessment centers that we invite candidates to. So kind of with that in mind, it's that the approach is definitely different. And I think one of the things that we do really well as a for the experienced hires, that we're looking to get even better with for the bulk recruitment, is feedback post interview. And it's definitely something that's really important to people, and people really get that, people do request extra feedback, but in a bulk recruitment situation, it's sometimes really tough to be able to give that personalized feedback. So we are currently working with an external company to be able to support us to put something in place, so that we are able to then give more personalized and authentic and meaningful feedback to kind of bulk recruitment candidates, because I think it just makes a real difference. And the feedback that we give to our experienced hires, because there's less of them, and it's more personalized, the feedback that we give them, we've had feedback on the feedback that we've given them, that they've kind of really appreciated it, and kind of it's made a difference. And sometimes that's just that extra bit of understanding as to why the hiring managers have made the decisions, and of who to kind of take forward to the next part of the process, is really kind of insightful to the candidates.
Oh, definitely. And I'll be honest, from our perspective, the number one gripe, there are normally three main gripes post-interview, but the number one gripe is feedback if you're unsuccessful. Clearly, if you are successful, you tend to get fairly positive feedback and move through the process, and that doesn't seem so challenging. But if you're unsuccessful at any stage, actually trying to get useful information out of an organization always seems harder than it should be, which is a real shame. So it's great that you're investing time at looking into that. So that's interesting, because I was going to ask you a question about that. It sounds like you're already taking steps to work around that. I suppose, to divert for a moment and just ask around standing back and looking at the whole process end to end, from perhaps posting a job advert or going out to market through to someone starting in the organization. There are a lot of obvious potential points for failure in terms of candidates having a brilliant experience. Are there any areas, and I'm putting you on the spot a bit here, but any areas you've identified that were weaknesses and you've implemented something to fix that, so that as you say, your ratings, if you like, and your reviews and your feedback stay positive throughout a recruitment process?
So, I mean, I'll answer your question, but I guess from a Toyota perspective, we really love innovation, continuous improvement, and we always think that there is a better way. So that something doesn't have to be broken for us to kind of look at it and kind of improve it. And when we think about weaknesses, there are definitely more opportunities. The first instance, I think, is around our job adverts. Just that we make them really, we make it really clear that we are open to discussions around flexibility and the benefits, and we just want to have that kind of door open to be able to have those conversations. So in terms of the first touch point that candidates potentially have with us, we kind of hope that window of the job advert is then a bit of an invite to be able to talk to us at the interview stage about the flexibility that they want, and not necessarily why they want it, but why it's important to them. And just the vibe that we're inviting conversation, I think is kind of really important, especially for the non-bulk recruitment stuff.
Excellent. And as you say, it is really important. Some of these organizations that I work with, it can be very cold, if you know what I mean, in terms of the interaction, and not particularly welcoming, as you say. And it's great that you're in a position to make people feel comfortable with, before they've even met anyone. basically.
That's it. Yeah, and I'm sure you'll have another podcast on how we're using AI, in kind of recruitment. But I think that there's definitely a place for AI in terms of the support that it gives the teams who are kind of administering the applications, but also by having by having some AI implementation then gives us more time back to be able to then personalize other parts of the process. So that's again something that we're always kind of looking at, that the new things that have come out or best practice that other people are doing in terms of making sure that the candidate experience is good, but also using AI where it's kind of necessary.
Indeed, understood. It's as you say, there could be 100 new podcasts about how AI integrates into this process, but yeah, that we're not there yet. I mean, I wanted to ask you. I mean, in fairness, it does lead on to an interesting point around external stakeholders in your recruitment process, and obviously one of those stakeholders is people like me, and other suppliers to organisations. Are there Well, I'll rephrase it. One of my frustrations when we're involved with recruiting with another organisation is there are changes within the organisation that perhaps we're not made aware of, or there are things happening culturally in the business that, as a third party, we're not privy to. How do you work with important stakeholders in your process to make sure that all the great work you're doing is reaching your potential new employees and your candidates, as it were?
I think that's a great question. So in terms of, there's obviously stuff that goes on that we wouldn't want to share with the recruiter, especially if then they're not supporting with any recruitment at that time. But I think having a recruiter that wants to know all of that kind of stuff that's going on is really important to us. And it is it's a team, it's a collaboration. We want to be able to support you to be able to support us. So we want to be able to give you all the information that you kind of want or need, and forming a good relationship with a recruiter so that you're able to then share that information is probably really, really key. So yeah, the fact that a recruiter wants to understand what our business is like, the changes, the exciting things that are happening, the projects that this person might get to support with, the manager, what the team looks like, our kind of ways of working, the building, all of that kind of stuff is kind of really key and really a real selling point for us. So I guess we look at recruiters to be a bit of an advocate,
Yeah.
not only of us as a business, but also our processes as well. We'd want the recruiters buy into our process and to understand it as well. So we're kind of open to answering any questions about the process, so that the recruiter can then get the candidates up to speed in terms of what they've what they should expect. And we want to allocate time for those kind of conversations, just so that we get kind of the best candidates through the door. I've worked in companies previously where I've inherited recruiters, and it's kind of been, this is just who we work with. But my vibe personally is certainly the personal relationships that you build with recruiters, and that it's not necessarily the company that you're working with, it's the people, because you want those people to be bought into what you're wanting to do, the direction that you're going into. And some of those really big kind of corporate recruiters, I think, aren't set up for their teams and their recruiters to be able to kind of give us that personalized experience as their kind of customer.
Yeah, it's true, actually. As you say, the way a business works, it's whether, as you say, from a third party, it's whether the way we work allows us to feel like we're part of your recruitment process. And I think that's what it is, isn't it? It's feeling like you're part of it and being aware of how you do what you do and how it's different to what other people are doing.
Definitely. And having a briefing a role with a recruiter, I don't want them to say, well, how many CVs do I need to send you? I want them to understand about the role and then ask about it, and kind of ask a question that means they've listened and understood, asking a question to understand some more, rather than the process that their company is holding them to.
Understood. That makes perfect sense. So looking ahead, I mean, you're obviously, in my opinion, I think you're quite a long way ahead of some of the other organizations we work with in terms of your drive to provide a great candidate experience on the day when they're interviewed and throughout the process. And by that we're talking about, how you keep in touch with people between when they are, for example, offered a job and when they start, which can be months. It can be 3 months, it can be 6 months sometimes, although we see a lot less of that these days, fortunately, for obvious reasons. But are there any sort of innovations or changes or things you're working on in the future that you think will affect how you are engaging with candidates or working with external partners at this stage?
First of all, it's great to hear that that you think we've got a good kind of process in place, and what we're trying to achieve is moving in the right direction. And I kind of forget that I haven't been a candidate for a while, so I haven't gone through a recruitment process. So in terms of kind of external benchmarking, I don't have that. So thanks
Oh,
for
you'd be horrified.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes, not always, not always. There's such a range. Yeah.
I think, well, the sad point is that there is a range, isn't there?
Mm.
And yeah, I guess another podcast would be to, understand how people felt about the companies after going through a recruitment process with them. So yeah, you can put that on the list for next time. So I think we've spoken previously about kind of continuous improvement, but I think there's definitely parts of our process that we're really happy with, but also parts that we just think we could do even better. And I think feedback is one of those parts that we do give feedback, but we just want to make that experience even better for the candidates. And in terms of our kind of assessment center experience, we held some surveys for people that had gone through it, and the standout part of that was that they really enjoyed the day and the time, but it wasn't what they were expecting. They were expecting something to be a bit more kind of branded and culturally more of a fit to what they were expecting from having looked at the role profile.
Okay.
So that's something that we at the moment are a project that we're undertaking in terms of re-looking at the assessments that we have on our assessment centre days and making sure that they are really aligned with our kind of culture and the direction that we're moving in, so that candidates going through those get a real sense of what their roles might be like as after they've gone through the assessment centre, rather than kind of an off the shelf kind of generic test.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? I don't know how I guess you can pull in people from those departments, or there probably will be an AI bot that can show you a day in the life, I guess, at some point.
Yeah, I guess. Well, there is that, but also that businesses move so quickly. We've got some really exciting projects coming up. We've got the government ZEV mandate that we are organising projects to kind of support the direction that we're moving in for that. So there's always lots of movement, and it might be, especially when we're thinking about the students and the graduates that are interviewing and accepting roles from us maybe 6 months before they start because they're completing their university qualification or whatever it might be. A lot can change in that time. So yeah, I think day in the life is great, but maybe it's more day in the life culturally rather than specific tasks that that the candidates would do.
That's true. Yeah, it's a really good point, as you say. And particularly, as you say, if you've got a culture that, and we know as a business, you've got, high engagement scores, you've invested a lot in, from your site, which is, astonishing, right the way through to the experience people are having before they join the company. So you want to ensure that's coming across. And I guess that feedback from your assessment centers is really helpful. Hey, look, it's been lovely talking to you. I could sit here and talk all morning. Do you know what I mean? It's because this is a process that forms the lifeblood of my daily job, is keeping people interested in an organization, as interested in the process they're going through when they join a business. And being very honest, if I don't have to do that, generally speaking, it goes really well. That's the way I always think of it. The more an external partner is having to effectively promote the interests of the organization, sometimes the less confident I am as to how successful the outcome is going to be, and you know, this business and this individual are going to, you know, appreciate each other and get together. So I think it sounds like you guys are doing some great work here and have got some great innovations planned down the line, and long may it continue to go well.
Super. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot for your time, Luke. I really appreciate you coming along. Cheers.
Have a good day. Thank you.
You too. Bye.